Okay, so let's go now to example number 6. Determine whether trapezoid CURE is an isosceles for C24, U57, R108, and E1 negative 1. So, atong target ani sa problem or atong aim sa problem will be proving if this trapezoid CURE is really an isosceles trapezoid or not an isosceles trapezoid. So, the solution will be, first one is graph the trapezoid. So, atong i-graph ang trapezoid using the ordered pairs corresponding to the letters or kanang mga points. Okay? The point C, the point U, then the point R, and the point E with their corresponding ordered pairs. So, naka-plot na daan diri sa Cartesian coordinate plane as you can see on the screen right now. So, diri na-locate ang C, diri na-locate ang U, diri na-locate ang R, o diri na-locate ang E. So, no need to discuss about on how to plot the points. Na-discuss na nako na siya sa katong mga previous videos about this one, or na-discuss na nako siya sa mga previous videos that relates to this one. Okay, so first is graph the trapezoid. Next is show that CR is congruent to UE. So we're going to prove that these two diagonals are congruent. So CR and UE are the diagonals of the trapezoid. CR and UE. So, one characteristics of the isosceles trapezoid is parehas ang measurement sa diagonals, or the diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. So, we're going to use the distance formula to prove nga ang trapezoid cure is an isosceles or not an isosceles. Okay? So, as a review, the formula for the distance formula, D is equals the square root of x squared, or not x squared, x sub 2 rather, minus x sub 1, then close parenthesis, then squared, then plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1, then quantity squared. So let's expand this square root sign. So, muna siya ang formula sa distance. So, kanang D represents the diagonals CR and also the UE. So, CR equals, so, let us substitute all the x's and the y's. Okay? Ang kanang left side mo ng x, mga x's, mga value sa x, kaning 4 minus 8 are the y's. So, let's assign the x sub 2 and the x sub 1. So, since una man ang letter C, so expected that this one is the x sub 2, the 2. Then ang kaning R, which has a value of x which is 10, so kana siya x sub 1. Then ang value sa y sa C is 4, so represents siya nga y sub 2. Then y sub 1 ang 8 sa R. Okay. So, dapat di siya pwede magka-interchange. Like, for example, kung nag-x sub 2 ka dire, y sub 2 ka. Kung mag-x sub 1 ka, y sub 1. Okay? So, mo dyan na siya dapat. Dili siya pwede nga ibaylo nga, dire ka mag-y, dire ka mag-x. Dire ka mag-y, dire ka mag-y, dire po ka mag-x. So, dili na siya mao. Dapat, ang ordered pairs niya should be x, y. Ordered pairs. So, ang unang value is the x, ang kaduwa nga value y. Okay, so so much for that. So let's go back to the CR. CR equals the quantity of 2 minus 10 squared plus the quantity of 4 minus 8 squared. So again, 2 is the x sub 2, 10 is the x sub 1, 4 is the y sub 2, 8 is the y sub 1. So subtract, so 2 minus 10, so that's negative 8 squared, or negative 8 quantity squared plus 4 minus 8, so that's negative 4. So dapat negative 4 ni siya. Okay, una man ang gamay, subtract sa dako nga value, so it is expected that the answer is negative. So negative 4 quantity squared. Then since these numbers, negative 8 and negative 4, are being squared, expected that the answer are positive. So negative 8 squared, that is 64. Negative 4 squared, that is 16. Then add, so that is 64 plus 16, that is the square root of 80. Okay, so if you're going to kung imo na siyang i-extract more the square root of 80, so mo na siya, this is what happens. So square root of 80, so you're going to look for a number. Okay, so first you're going to look for the factors. After that, dapat ang usa ka factor ana can be extracted or it is a perfect square or perfect square root. Okay, so ang factor niya is 20 times 4. So ang 4, ma-square root man siya, ma-extract man siya because the square root of 4 is 2. So that is 2 the square root of 20. So, but the 20 can be extracted also. So may mo siyang 2 times, kung usa tong gibuhat sa 80, mo pa atong buhaton sa 20. So ang factor sa 20 are 4 and 5. Okay, so 4 times 5. Then ma-square root man ang 4, this is a perfect square root, so that is the square root of 4 is 2. Then may mo siyang 2, then extract man ang square root of 4, so that's 2. So times 2 ka, kaya na siya sa gawas. Then ang nabili na lang sa square root sign is the 5. Then equals 4 the square root of 5. So the distance of CR is square root of 80 or 4 the square root of 5 to be exact. Okay, next, so we are done with the CR. How about the UE? Actually this one, it is kumbaga na din siya conclusion, but it lacks the solution to prove that the trapezoid CURE is an isosceles trapezoid. Okay, so we are done with CR, so let's continue. So let's have the UE. So okay, so let's have UE equals, so again we're going to use the distance formula like we did on the CR. So UE, no, so I'll illustrate a diagonal again sa UE. So kanang 5 ang atong unahon, kay mo nang x sub 2, then minus 1, then squared, then plus, so open bracket ko because there is negative 1, then open bracket, open parenthesis, 7, that will be that is the y sub 2, so 7 minus negative 1, so dapat naka-erase dapat ni siya. Kailangan, so let's erase this one. So ano na siya. Okay, so that's equals, so 5 minus 1 5 minus 1, that's 4, no? So the square root of 4, okay, squared, then plus, so kanang 7 minus negative 1, so if you're going to use the calculator, mahimo na siyang 8. But if you're going to solve it manually, so duha ka negative sign nagsunod, so that's positive. So instead of 7 minus negative 1, it becomes 7 plus 1, mahimo siyang 8. Therefore 8 squared siya. Then so that's equals 16 plus 64. So parehas na gyapon siya sa UE. Okay, wala lang yun gi-elaborate further diri sa kaning PowerPoint, no? Wala siya ma-elaborate further about this one. Ning diretso na siya conclude nga ang CR is equals UE, no? Mas maayo nga kung unsay paagi sa CR, mapod atong buhaton sa UE. Then we're going to compare the measurements sa CR ug UE kung parehas ba. So it is expected that this is the square root of 80. Parehas raman ang solution diri, no? 64 plus 16 diri pod 16 plus 64. So nagkabali lang, pero pareha ra gyapon numbers. Ang 64 add sa 16, so that's 80. So that is the square root of 80, or 4 the square root of 5 to be exact. Okay? So ang UE and CR are congruent, and because CR is equals UE, then CR is congruent to UE, and quadrilateral CURE is an isosceles trapezoid. Okay, so isosceles trapezoid na siya. Okay, so let's go back to this problem. So we prove that this trapezoid CURE is an isosceles trapezoid by of course first we're going to graph the trapezoid para makita nato. Then ang pinaka-importante is nagamit ta og distance formula to show and to prove that these two diagonals are congruent. But napatay usa pa ka method on how to prove that this trapezoid CURE is an isosceles. So ang atong gigamit man first, ang atong first method man, no, is by using the diagonals. Ang kadua is by using the sides of the trapezoid. So specifically, the sides of the trapezoids are CE and UR. Okay? So balik ta sa katong theorem sa sa isosceles trapezoid. Makaingon ka nga isosceles trapezoid siya kung congruent ang sides. So whatever the measurement of CE, it's just the same as the UR. But we're going to prove kung parehas ba sila. No, it's just hypothetical first pa. No? In other words, kung unsay measurement sa left side, mo pa na measurement sa right. Okay? So we're going to prove that the sides CE and UR are congruent. So how? We're going to use again the distance formula. So let's have the CE first. Okay? So kung sa nato ang distance sa CE. So CE equals, so square root of open parenthesis. So C man ang una, so this will, that 2 will be the kuan, or the 2 is the x sub 2. So x sub 2 dala nga so ang 2 will be the x sub 2, or ang 2 is x sub 2, then minus 1. So ang 1 is the x sub 1, then squared, plus, then open parenthesis, kaning 4 y sub 2, then minus negative 1. So dapat bracket ni siya, because we already used the parenthesis. So bracket ni, so ana na siya, then squared, then equals the square root of, so 2 minus 1, so that's 1 squared, no? So 1 squared, then plus, so kana siya again, kana siya puros negative sign sa tunga, so may mo siyang positive, so 4 plus 1 may mo siyang 5. Or just simply type in your calculator 4 minus negative 1, that will give you the answer of 5, or positive 5. So that's 5 squared, then equals, so the square root of 1 squared, of course, the square root of 1 squared, sayop ko, sorry. So the square root of sakto di ako, sorry again sorry again. So balik ta. Sige, so muna na siya, no? The square root of 1 squared plus 5 squared. So, ang 1 squared is 1, then plus 25. Kay 5 squared is 25. So, 1 plus 25, that is equals the square root of 26. So, kana siya, dili na siya ma-extract. CE is the square root of 26. So, mag-expect ta nga ang UR is square root of 26 pod. Okay? To prove that this trapezoid CURE is an isosceles trapezoid. Okay? So, manaman ta sa sa CE. So, ari na ta sa UR. So, ang UR equals the square root of, so ano na siya, so 5 minus 10, so these are the excess, then plus 7 minus 8 squared. So 5 is the x sub 2, 10 is the x sub 1, 7 is the y sub 2, then 8 is the y sub 1. Then equals, so the 5 minus 10, so that's negative 5, then squared, then plus 7 minus 8, so that's negative 1, then squared, so that's equals square root of, so negative 5 squared, positive 25, negative 1 squared, so that's positive 1, so plus 1 ka. So we have also the square root of 26. Again, trapezoid CURE is an isosceles. O sa atong gi-prove, or how do we prove this one? So first, nagamit ta sa diagonals, then ang kadua is the sides, no? So balik ta sa diagonals. Ang measurement sa diagonal sa isosceles trapezoid parihas. So we prove that one. Then kadua, the sides of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. So parihas. So we prove also that one. Okay? So therefore, trapezoid CURE is an isosceles trapezoid.